Hello to everyone listening to us. I'm Renata, the conference host, and our today's guest is Johnny Allison. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you. So great to be here.
So lovely seeing you. Would you like to tell us by yourself a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. First of all, I live in Portland, Oregon, and I always have to say at the beginning is I raise daughters, and I do work for boys, advocating for boys, and that started about 25 years ago when I was teaching. Wow. And I had a class of 10 boys and 2 girls. This was in the mid-90s, and no one was talking about boys in the United States at that time. We were focused on girls and equity for girls. And I had all these first grade boys that I was completely puzzled about. And so I got very curious and started reading books and talking to people and beginning to understand, oh, the school system is not set up for boys to be successful. It's just not. And at that time too, I had parents coming to me, moms especially, coming and saying, I don't understand my boy. Why is he so noisy? Why is he so active? All the things that, you know, as a mom of a boy, were puzzles that was so different from how, you know, from our female perspective. And so I stopped teaching and I became the founder of Boys Alive. And I'm also the co-host of the On Boys Parenting podcast. So I work with parents, I work with teachers, helping them see through a new lens, understand boys and how they approach life, how they communicate differently than we do. So when we can get on their communication track, we can build connection and foster trust in a deeper way.
And you also wrote a book, right, about boys?
I did write a book, Boys Alive, Bring Out Their Best, and that's available on anywhere you find books. So I just love supporting parents and helping them discover new ways to connect with their boys. And along the way, dads have told me they understand themselves better too.
All right, because how come you are a mom of daughters and then yet you chosen the boy side? How come? How do you have this insight? Like, why wouldn't focus on girls? Because you have girls at your house. Why would go with boys?
Right. Well, it was really that first class of boys that I had, and that feeling of, I know nothing about boys. And so it just became really interesting to me, and to see very much culturally and socially, the messages that we're giving boys just felt wrong to me. And so I really wanted to advocate and change that messaging around how we feel about boys, especially in those years that I was a teacher and the years since when I've mentored teachers and done professional development in schools. I see that, you know, women, and most early childhood elementary teachers are women, and we naturally do expect that the other person is going to communicate the same way that we do, and they don't. And so there's this disconnect, and we end up making boys wrong, and we're disciplining them for things that they're just being boys. So when we can understand that, then we can create environments and create our home in a way that supports boys, instead of always having them feel like they're just too much and they're bad.
You said that the schools were set up in a way back then when we were a teacher that they would fail our boys. Do you have that feeling that it has changed?
Not enough. It really hasn't changed enough. And, you know, then throw in a pandemic, right? And online schooling is just not set up for boys. And not really for girls either, but girls tend to be able to handle that, being able to sit still and focusing for long periods of time. But when we really think about it, Renata, the school systems are only maybe 150 years old. And when we look before that at how boys learned, and it was out in the field, it was active and doing things. It wasn't come and sit in this classroom and we're going to tell you things. They were out with learning with their hands and their bodies. And that's really how boys naturally learn.
What's the main difference, would you say, between girls and boys in that sense? Like, how do we communicate differently with boys and girls, and why?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I think for us to recognize that boys, I guess you could say boys communicate with their body before they communicate with their words. So, I'm sure if your son is having a good day or he's having a bad day, he doesn't even have to say anything. It's right there in his body. And what we know about the brain is that for boys, especially when their bodies are moving, their brains are moving too. So when their bodies are moving, they can think better, process better, find their words better. So we want to encourage that movement all the time. And, you may have had the experience with your son of reading to him when he was little, and we think, oh, he's going to cuddle on my lap and we're going to read stories endlessly and he's going to sit there for an hour and it will be so lovely. I don't know if that was your experience or not. Maybe he was wiggling and maybe he wanted to be on the floor playing with his blocks or doing something. And we think, because we're women and we can sit still and take in information easily, we think, oh, he's not listening or he's not interested. But actually, if he's moving his body, if you allow him to be engaged in some way with his hands or with his whole body, he can actually hear you better.
Oh.
Yeah, because his brain is active, because his body's moving.
So,
but it's such a different. What's that?
This is the key, like them being active. This is the key to communicating with them.
Yes. So this works for husbands, this works for.
Oh, good.
Yes, right. So if you want to have a conversation with your son, go for a walk, cook together, go out and throw a ball, do something active together. That allows him to move his body, allows him to find his words more easily. And so that's one of the keys is getting moving. And in that, if he needs to sit still, go into grandma's house for dinner, out to a restaurant, make sure he has an opportunity to move his body before he has to sit still. And then be okay if he has a squeeze ball or if he doodles or does something in that place where he's supposed to be a little quieter. That will help him manage that energy. Yeah.
That's so true, because I noticed with my son that even at dinner table, he's playing with bread, like, this is my something, and then he's dancing with it, But he's always busy, like his hands are always busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we as moms have to kind of recognize that and not be irritated by it. Because sometimes we're just like, just sit still. But if we recognize, oh, this is how he is managing to stay at the table with you, is by being somehow moving with his hands. And the key is giving him something to do that you're okay with him doing. Yeah, because he'll find the thing. He'll find something to do. So give him the squeeze ball or the paper and pencil if that's okay with you.
And I noticed that he gets even more focused if I let him do other things. So let's say we read a book and I would be tempted to like come and sit next to me and then you will be able to listen, you know, more
Right.
carefully. But then he's like moving and then playing with Legos and doing other stuff. And sometimes I'm like, are you listening? Yes, I am, Mom. Okay. What did I have just said? He's like, and then he repeats the whole sentence.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
he has it.
Yeah.
He has it
Yes.
in his mind. I was like, oh, okay, so you are really listening.
And he's listening even better because you've allowed him to do that. And the other component in there, the other like magic, I would say, is that he doesn't have to make eye contact.
Oh.
So we, as women especially, we love making eye contact. We get a hit of oxytocin, that feel good hormone, when we have eye contact with another person. For our boys and men, it can feel not as comfortable. So, and I mean, I think every parent on the planet has said, look at me when I'm talking to you, because we think that they're going to hear us when they're looking at us. But actually what it's doing for our boys is he can do one or the other. He can look at you or hear you, not both. I had a dad once who said this so clearly to me, I'll never forget. He said, you know, I tell my wife, if she wants me to hear what she's saying, I can't look at her. And if she wants me to look at her, I can't hear what she's saying. So I tell her, choose one channel. Either I'm looking at her or I'm hearing her. And so that's what your son is doing too in that moment of, he doesn't have to make eye contact. So he's more relaxed, and that pressure to keep that eye contact isn't there. So that's the other thing at play when you're going for a walk, when you're cooking together, is that eye contact piece is not there as well. Yeah.
I also noticed that he doesn't like direct questions. Like if I would ask him like, so what happened at school? Or
yeah.
Is
and
that
does he answer when you ask him that?
nothing? Like nothing. He said nothing. What happened at school? Nothing. Like
nothing.
How did it go?
Right. One word answer. Yeah. Yeah. So this is, parents ask this question all the time. We want to know what our kids did at school. And so imagine your son, I don't know if you pick him up in the car or how you get him from school. He has been in school all day, and he's been talked at all day. And he's had to process all these words coming at him all day. Then also navigating all the social things, and he's having to look at nonverbal body language. And I mean, he is absolutely overwhelmed by the end of the day. He's exhausted. His brain is tired. So then he sees mom or dad, and mom and dad, oh, what'd you do at school today? How was school today? Do you have homework? Who'd you talk to? Where'd you have lunch? And he's just done. So I tell parents, you know, greet your son after school, say hello, have all the love sparkling out of your eyes at that moment, give him water and give him a snack, and then don't say anything else. Just have it be quiet. If you're in the car, it's just, you know, peaceful, companionable quiet as you go. And then by the time you get home or later in the day, once he's had a chance to kind of relax a little bit, likely he'll be ready to tell you about school. So give him some space, give him that time to just decompress from the day.
Okay, so let's say, and this is so hard to do. So let's say he comes back from school and I let him be, like give him some space, feed him, so a snack and water, so he's resourcing himself. And then how do I approach him? So he doesn't like direct questions, right? So how would I start a conversation, let's say? What would I say? Like, how would I ask the same thing without saying, how was your school? Because I'm still curious. I still want to know.
Exactly. So I think that you might find that you might not even have to ask the question if you've given him that space, if you've given him some time. Asking a direct question puts him on the spot. So you might just, I mean, maybe he had a music class that day or something, and you can kind of circle around to it in that way. But I do think that if you just give him some space, he's going to want to tell you. I do ask parents, and we were talking about this before we turned on the recording, of how so much of parenting is us and our thing, right? And I ask parents around this school question, when you were his age, or when you were a tween or a teenager, did you really want to tell your parents everything that happened at school? No, so it ends up, our boys end up feeling like they're being interrogated. Question coming at them. So just to let that kind of go, and it may be a day or two before you have a school conversation, but just let it go, because it does, boys do feel like it's a little bit invasive, and we really have to put ourselves in their position of, oh yeah, I remember I didn't want to come home and rehash the whole day with my parents. I want to have some of my own privacy and autonomy. And I always tell, jokingly, but I tell parents of boys, make friends with the parents of girls in your son's class, because then you'll get a little more information from them. Yeah. But it feels counterintuitive, but it really is a way to build connection with your boy and trust when you do give him the space and the silence and allow him just simply to be and not always be at him.
So we let them approach us when they are ready, but in the meantime we are left with ourselves, and we are left with ourselves like worrying and having this anxiety. But how do I know? How can I control if I don't know what happened at school? And how can I be sure? And I just want my kid to be happy, and I need to know what happened at school, and how is he at school? So how do we deal with ourselves in the meantime? How do we calm down and just trust, as you say, our boys?
Well, you are his parent, and you have a deep knowledge of how he's doing, really and truly. You can look at his body. Does he come home relaxed, or is he tense? And is he able to, go off and play in the afternoon, or is he home worrying about homework? So you trust your own intuition as his parent and the one who knows him best. And the thing is, if you build this connection with him, this trust, instead of always being like, oh, answer my question and talk to me. When you're able to be together in that companionable silence and ease, you're building a deep connection with him. And through that connection, which may, and this is the crux of it, is we need to step out of that way of communicating as females, which is talk to me, tell me everything. And we process everything out loud, and we rehash things, and we talk about it again and again and again. Our boys don't need that. They don't like it. They don't need to do it the way we do. And so when we can step out of that place and recognize, oh, he's good. He doesn't have to process out loud. He doesn't, You know, he doesn't have to talk about everything. I can know from my heart sense and my intuition, he's good. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've created this trust and this connection with him, he's going to come to me if he's troubled about something or has a question about something. He'll come to you. But it's so challenging, as you said. It's like, oh, we have to be so quiet. Yeah. Yeah. And in that too, I want to make sure we tell your audience about, so physical needs to be physical, and he's overwhelmed with words. And we do that too. As I said, as women, we process, we talk, we bring in lots of detail. And I encourage you to practice talking in bullet points. So saying so much less than you really want to say. And this is it can be a fun conversation with a grown adult man, your father, your brother, your husband. Ask him, do you love it when I tell you all the details and the story and the backstory and all the things? Or do you just want me to tell you the facts or what you need to know? Oh, just tell me the one thing you want me to know. They don't need all the detail. It's too much. And they're like, why do I need to know that? Just tell me the exact thing. Tell me the 3 things you want me to get at the grocery store. I don't need to know why. I don't need to know, all the details around it. So it's a challenge for us because we love to talk. Look at us. We love to talk. Talk less, talk in bullet points, and ask fewer questions. And you'll find he may be coming to you more than he did before. It creates that opening.
Yes, because instead of going after him, just I create a space and then he can come back to me whenever he's ready.
Yeah.
I remember. So when you were talking about trusting our boys, I had so many families telling to me that, I had this feeling that I knew my boy when he was 5, 6, 7. And then one day, out of the blue, like he turned 10 or 11, so a very early teenager. And it's like there's another boy in the room. Like he was, I had this feeling I knew him. And then there's this young man in my living room and I don't know who he is. What happens there?
Yeah. So we have these sweet little boys, they're 3, they're 5, and they're just these sweet little boys that are so connected to us and expressive. And then they go to preschool or they go to kindergarten. I'm not sure what you call it there, but they're 5 or 6 or 7, and they're with a peer group. Now they're with their friends. And this is the cultural messaging that starts to come in. And this is the place, maybe you've worked with parents that, oh, my son really likes pink sparkly shoes or a pink tutu or, something that's a little bit out of what's typical boy. And he loves it. And when he's little, it's like, oh, that's great. Let's, that's fine. And then it's time to go to school and be with a peer group. And then as parents, we're like, oh no, because we know what's going to happen, right? Somebody's going to say something about his pink sparkly shoe choice. And then he's going to feel like, oh, this isn't boy enough. I can't do this. This isn't okay. My friends are telling me it's not okay. So it's this shift that happens when they start getting out in the world. And this is the cultural messaging that we as parents have to be aware of and counteract. And it's, you asked me earlier if I've seen things change, and it's remarkable how little this has changed. We still have, parents telling their boys it's not okay to cry. And, this whole around how they dress. And I think it's opening up a little bit. And we got to keep going, and we have to keep reassuring him, if that's your choice, go for it. Great. And support him and love him for who he is. And yes, there are going to be those points when you look at this child and be like, who are you and where did you come from? And that is too that place where we're building that trust, we're building that connection from an early age. And we have to know that that thread is there, and he's going to go waver off of that and be more pulled into his friend group. And yet, if you have a strong sense of family, if you've always had, we always have family dinner, he knows that that's there. He may push back, he may resist, but it's like, this is what we do. This is our family values. We value that time and that connection. And finding something that you do together as a family that you love. Skiing or boating or, just some activity that you have done from an early age and that he can kind of come back to. And through it all, so he is, especially in the teen years, he's trying on some different personas. He's trying to figure out who he is. And so, one day you might see him really passionate about climate change, and the next day it's, this clothing choice or whatever it is. But he's figuring out who he is. And so you get to be the steady presence. Maggie Dent, who is Australia's boy champion. You probably know of Maggie. I love her. She said, it's like you have to be the lighthouse. So you are that lighthouse. You are that unchanging presence, steady, secure, firm. And he's gonna spin all around that lighthouse, but he's going to know that you are always there. You are always supporting him and loving him, no matter how, where he goes in his little boat outside the lighthouse. But recognizing that is partly how he's figuring out who he is by trying all those different things and reassuring him that it's okay. Years ago, I did an event on rites of passage. And in that event, I interviewed some kids who had been through a rite of passage experience. And so they're in their early 20s at this time. And I said, what do you want parents to know? What do you wish your parents would have said to you at the beginning of, in these tween and teen years? And it gives me chills even thinking about it now. And one girl said, I just wanted my parents to tell me it was all going to be okay. It was going to be okay. I think that is so profound because our kids are living in the moment. They're living in the present and they can't see that longer picture that we can, look back as adults and know that, oh yeah, you're going to get through adolescence. You're going to get through college, all those things. Your kids don't get that. They don't see that. So giving them that reassurance and that perspective of this is where you are now. It's going to be okay. You will grow through this. You will grow through this, and families will grow through, the toddler stage and to not get stuck in, oh, he's this way. He's always going to be this way, but giving them the reassurance too, that it's going to be okay.
I love this image of a lighthouse because as long as our children see the light, we know that we are at home, so we can go as far as they wish and to discover themselves, but we see the light and we know that the home is there. And also being this light for them, like in those dark times when we are looking for themselves, they don't know who they are, they maybe do mistakes, or they go through a phase which is very difficult. We shed this light on the path, like I'm still this light and I reflect back to you your own light. You don't see it for the time being, maybe. You're lost in your own struggle. But that's okay. I'm there for you and I'm gonna shed this light so your road or your sea will be still the same, but you're gonna see maybe more clearly.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Oh, I
share
love
that with
that.
you. Mm.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you know, if you are going to be that steady light for your children, you have to take care of yourself.
Oh yeah.
That your light can shine, right? Oh yeah, there's that part. Yes.
Yeah.
So it is taking time for yourself. It is, you know, stepping away from the family every now and then, touching back into what you loved before you had kids, something that you know, nourished your soul and spirit
Yeah.
before you had kids. So that's a really important balance.
It took me a while to get, why do I need to get my oxygen mask first? You know, this, you know, message in the planes. I was like,
Right.
what a heartless person wrote this. Like, this is so cruel. Like, oh my gosh, I'm sure she or he doesn't have any kid, because he wouldn't have written that.
Right? Because
And
we're,
it
you
really,
know, everything's
yeah,
for our kids. Yes.
it took
And
time to get why we need to start with ourselves. Because if we have a steady house, this steady lighthouse, there's no steady if we are not steady inside.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be just as simple as stopping and taking a deep breath before you enter a room with maybe your son and your daughter having their little squabble. Well, that's not going to change in the 30 seconds or the 1 minute that you stop to take a deep breath, or 2 or 3, before you enter the room.
Mm.
But what changes is you are calmer. You have settled yourself, and you can then go in and if it's siblings at each other, the question that I love to ask as the parent is, do you need my help with this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need my help figuring this out? Because there's a lot of times when they're at each other and they're just having fun and it's driving us crazy, but they're just, you know, they're just doing their thing, and we can just walk away. But we want to make sure that if they do need help resolving something, that you're there.
Mm.
But you're not just jumping in and separating them and, you know, having the chaos, because you've taken that moment to take care of yourself and show up for your children.
Yeah. We mentioned feelings earlier. How do we talk about feelings with boys? Knowing that they don't like tons of words.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like have this, you know, like direct questions. So how do we approach feelings with them?
Yeah. So there's several different ways to go about this. Understanding that our boys we need to help our boys expand their emotional vocabulary. So our boys, you know, angry, sad, mad, happy, pretty much that's it. We want them from a young age to know what frustration is, what disappointment is. And so we can talk about those words, help apply them, like offer them. I always think of it as like a buffet, offer them some different choices. Are you feeling, you know, are you feeling grouchy, like a bear that woke up in the middle of his winter's nap? Give them some imagery around it to give it life, to give that feeling word some life. And that's for young children. All children are watching adults. All children, and boys especially, are watching the men in their life. So it's important for dad, uncle, grandpa to talk about feelings. This happened and I felt this, and this is what I did about it. And we want to get to that third place. This is what I did about it. So, you know, I was feeling frustrated because I, you know, didn't get whatever, couldn't find the thing at the grocery store. I felt so frustrated. So what I did was I just stood in place and I took 3 deep breaths, or I made a plan to, go to the other store and find the thing. Whatever it is, it's important for your boys to see the resolution, to see what you did about this feeling. That's one thing. Another thing is helping them figure out where they feel it in their body. So I do a lot of work with boys and big emotions and boys and anger, because anger is the default emotion for many boys. So, and that's the message they get from the world. It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be embarrassed or afraid or shy or all the things, but it's okay to be angry. That's that cultural messaging. So we want them to identify in their body where they're feeling the feeling. It might be, my throat, or it might be my stomach. And when they can start to identify that in their body, then they can channel it in a healthy way. So if it's anger, oh, I feel, my face gets hot and my hands are in a fist. Oh, okay. Let's figure out some strategies to do with that. You can stop and go get a drink of water. You can hit a pillow. You can run around the block, all whatever works for your boy. And you determine that together to help channel that feeling. But you can't channel the feeling until you know the feeling. You've got to get familiar and understanding of that.
The difficulty with all the boys, I would say, is that they wouldn't want to play this game, I would say. Like the younger ones, if I ask them, where do you feel it in your body? They're like, oh, that's fun. I'm gonna play. Let's look for it. But as they get older, they're like, what? And they won't do that. So what do we do then? Yeah.
It's still important to have the conversations. And I believe that when you have this connection with your boy, he will open up. Now, the thing is, it might not look like you think it's going to. It might just be 1 or 2 words. And it might just be you plant the seed, before lunch, and he doesn't talk about it until bedtime that night. Boys tend to take some time to process and mull things over. So don't expect to have an immediate answer, but plant the seed. And part of it, as I said, is the adults in his life that are modeling that feeling vocabulary, those emotional feeling words, that it's part of the conversation in your home.
What if that is not the case? Let's say a mom wants to talk about, feelings with her son, but then the dad in the family, he's like all, old fashioned dad, right?
Yeah.
What do we say then? Or do we have to say something? Like if there is no model, if there is no an example, how do we approach it?
Well, there's lots of models. There's lots of examples out in the world. So there's movies, there's books, there's athletics, and it's having the conversations around the things that he's interested in. So, if he's interested in football, what happened when that team lost that game? How did they show their disappointment? So it's really just bringing it into everyday conversation and everyday life and using those opportunities as they come up. And, we can only change ourselves. We can't change our parenting partner. We can't change our kids. We can only change our approach. And if there is a dad in the house that is, more stoic and not forthcoming emotionally, that's okay too. Of course you want to encourage him to share stories from his childhood or whatever it might be, but you also can't force it. So it's understanding that and I think our dads really are at this crossroads in this time, because we have this more awareness of, we want our boys to be able to express themselves. We want them to be, show their feelings. And as women, of course, we love that. But then here's this man who was likely not raised by a dad who was able to talk about his feelings. And all of a sudden he's got this pressure of, well, show your feeling, talk about your feelings. How do you feel about that? And he doesn't have the background. He doesn't have the call it training to do that. Now, some men want to learn more and they are interested to explore that, but others are, I'm trying to put food on the table and I got to go to my job and it's too much. So it really comes down to having realistic expectations for our boys, for our men, being easy with each other, just being easy with each other, and knowing that you as mom, if you're, connected with your son, you can have these conversations with him while you're going for a walk, while there's not eye contact, while he's doing something with his hands, and realize that those conversations might be just 2 or 3 sentences, might be just super short, and be okay with that because he's thinking about it. He's processing. But he, to sit down and have, we're going to talk for the next hour. Like you and I can do this easily. This would not be comfortable to sit and talk with your boy for this amount of time. Now, in that too, I want to be sure to say that your boy is probably your son. I don't know if he's into Roblox or Minecraft or anything like that, but he likely will come to you and tell you way more about all of it than you ever want to hear. And you're tempted, I don't know, you might be tempted to be like, that's enough, stop talking, I'm sick of hearing about this. And you may not say that in words, but your body's saying that, your attention is saying that. But when you can engage with him, when he has this passion that he wants to share with you, you're actually creating that pathway of having those back and forth conversations later on. So if you shut him down now, you're shutting him down in the future. So open the door, take that deep breath, and put your phone away. Let dinner sit on the back of the stove and really engage with him, because you're modeling for him. This is how people have conversations. This is how people share. And that's really creating a nice foundation for future conversations when he, calls you from college and wants to tell you about this girl he met, or whatever it is, that pathway is familiar for him because you started when it was Minecraft and Fortnite.
I was thinking about, parents, as parents, we so often complain about the screen time. We have this worry that, our children go there and then they disappear and we don't know what they do there and why we spend all this time online. And I was thinking that, this is also a perfect opportunity to connect with them. Okay, so let's go and see what you do there. Oh, this is Minecraft, or so who is the main character? What does he do? Oh, he looks sad, or he seems sad. What happened? Engage all this feelings talk without naming it think about feelings. Yeah, we are just talking about your game.
Yes, absolutely. And have him teach you how to play it. Show some interest in, absolutely. And, then you can mess up and he can be like, oh, geez, mom, all those things. But showing some interest in his passion, absolutely so important. And screen time is every parent's nightmare. It's so pervasive, and we need to hold it in balance with everything else. We need to get him active and engaged in other things so that it doesn't become his whole life. It is part of what he's interested in and what he's doing. and accepting it that way. But he also, and I encourage parents also to make an agreement with your kids about the things that have to happen before screen time. So homework has to happen, any chores around the house, engagement with the family needs to happen. Whatever you agree on for your family. I had one family that, you know, he needs to read and he needs to practice his instrument, and then he can get online. So having those agreements and making those together in a collaborative way is crucial. You can't just tell him. It has to be he's participating in making that agreement.
Do you have a tip on homework? Because this is also, I guess, like very touchy topic with boys, especially because they come from school and they have all this need to move their bodies because they stayed still at school and they listened while we were talked at. And then they come home and they're like, oh, so this is my time. I'm gonna do, you know, all those things. And then this is homework. like
Yeah.
this huge, you know, something on their shoulders. So
absolutely.
Any tips about that?
I have lots of tips about that. I was a teacher. I have lots of tips about that.
True.
And number one tip is that if homework is disrupting your family life, if it is causing problems at home and you're, you know, every day dreading the homework scene, talk to the teacher and change it. You do not have to likely, I mean, some schools grade on homework, but have a conversation with the teacher and say, you know what, right now, this is too stressful for our family. We're going to take a pass. Boys also really resent having to do busy work. If they feel like there's not a point in that homework, if it's just another math sheet or another something, then they're going to resist. So it's making, how can you make that homework relevant? It may be that he has to read a book and write a report on it. Well, writing can be the block. He might have lots to say, but writing it down can be the difficulty. So he's going to resist and not do it or wait till the last minute. So talking with the teacher, can he build something that was in the story? Can he do something with his hands to, you know, engage with the story? So you might have to get a little more creative than the teacher might be. How can it be a hands-on project instead of a written project? For some boys, that writing is so hard. You know, boys come to their fine motor skills later than girls. And so especially in first, second, third grade, the writing piece is so hard. So can you take notes for him? Can you do talk to text so that he can get the ideas out? For boys too, if he can draw what he wants to write, that can be helpful to draw it first. And then you can talk with him about, well, how was that? How was that day? Was it a sunny, sparkly day, or was it, you know, like gloomy rain clouds? So you can bring in the sensory detail that he might not necessarily have, but you can bring it to him along with, you know, what is the character feeling? So you have those conversations too. So homework, and again, homework before screen time. Yeah. And a lot of kids will say, but I have to do my homework online. Well, there's the choice of you do all the homework that you can do before you have the computer. And you can also, again, talk to the teacher and say, how can this homework be done offline? You know, we used to have paper and you filled it out on paper. So can you go back to that? And it doesn't have to be done online. So get them off the computer as much as you can. Get it into hands-on work. Hands-on learning.
It has been such a struggle since those pandemic times. Well, school was stopped. Then they went back to, they were learning online. then they went back to school, but somehow school kept all those online habits.
Yes.
And they continued to like send all the homework online.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was like, what happened to, you know, the old good printer?
Right. Yeah. So, you know, schools are going to do the easiest thing because they have a lot of families to serve. If it's not serving your family, you have to be proactive and say, this isn't working for us. We need to do this differently, and make those changes for your own child. And boys will, they'll find every way to resist doing homework. And when they finally do it, they might not turn it in. So it's helping, and that's an organizational issue. So it's helping them get organized, helping them keep track of their assignments. They might have something due tomorrow, and then this project isn't due for 2 weeks. They don't yet have the brain power to plan that. So you have to help them plan it in a visual way. You want to have it mapped out for them so they can see it. And maybe it's Post-it notes on a calendar or something that you can move around and help him plan. Don't expect that he knows how to organize his time. We barely know how to do that as adults, right? So we have to teach him how to do that.
And this is so true with feelings too. Like I call my generation, like we are this lost generation in feelings topics. Why? Because I was never taught what I'm trying to teach my children.
Right.
And so I talk to them, and at the same time I talk to myself, because this is all so new. Yeah. I was never told that all feelings are okay. You know, I got this feeling that some feelings are okay, but some of them, oh, really bad. And I wouldn't have them. Like I have to get rid of them. This is not okay. So we have all this work to do in ourselves too, because we are very new to it. So it's like a double work. So we do it on ourselves, and then we also teach our children. And this is not easy.
Well, and you know, we have varying amounts of bandwidth. So, you know, maybe your listeners listening to this now are just like, yes, this is great, and I can do this. And then, you know, a week from now, something happens and life gets busy and you forget. Yeah. And so I encourage your listeners all to just have some grace for yourself and give yourselves a break, and know that, you know, any little bit of thing that you're learning is going to serve your children. It makes me think of when my kids were little. They're now in their 30s. And when my kids were little, my mom would say to me, you know so much more than we did about parenting. You know so much more than we did. And I thought, oh, okay. You know, we have books. We didn't have the internet then. And it's as you know, my oldest daughter is days away from having my first grandchild. But I in the last month or so, I realized I'm learning so much about newborns and so much that I didn't know. And I've told her so many times, like, you know so much more than we did. So much more than I did. And so, you know, I got that from my mom, and now I'm saying the same thing to my daughter. And it's every generation is learning more, and we're moving more towards this more healthy relationship with ourselves and with our children. And, you know, that's what we can do as parents, is do better for our kids than our parents knew how to do for us.
Yeah, so true. Well, lots of thoughts to have and to think about all those beliefs that we have in ourselves, you know, about ourselves first, then all the habits about, you know, good feelings, bad feelings, and then trying to learn new things. As we are wrapping up, do you have maybe an insight on where to begin? Like, let's say someone is listening to us and like, oh, this is something I was looking for my whole life. Like, I want to do that. So I want to start a new habit. I want to first deal with my feelings, then be calm for my children. But where do I start? As you say, because I'm in the middle of a chaos. It's a war is happening in my house, like all those kids, you know, not getting along together. And so where do I start?
Well, we always have to start with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to recognize that you cannot do it alone. You can't do it alone. You're learning new things. You need support and practice and, make the false steps and come back and fix it and repair and start again. And that is really, I'd say, impossible to do on your own. So whether it's you reach out to a parent educator, or you work with me in my programs, or you have a friend, mom next door that you are able to talk with, you have to reach out and educate yourself and get that support, because it doesn't serve your kids. It doesn't serve yourself to do this alone. So getting out of that place, we always have our breathing. Everything can come back to our breathing. We breathe all the time, but do we breathe low and deep, that calming breath? Do we take that moment for ourselves when our feet hit the floor in the morning, or are we just instantly launched into the chaos of the day? And we didn't talk about this time. I hope we can talk again, but it is so much about also helping your children see how capable they are and allowing them to participate in life. Allowing your 3-year-old to be standing stirring hot soup because you've taught him how to do it. And the more our children feel capable, the more some of those problem behaviors fade away. Our ultimate goal for our children is that they become independent adults, but that has to start when they're 2, when they're 3, that they see how much they can do, instead of us moms, I'm talking to you, doing everything because it's easier, it's quicker, it's done our way. But if you can slow down and take the time to teach your child how to clean up that spill, how to sweep the floor, that is going to serve them, but also you in the full 18 years that they're in your home and into their adult life.
I love that, because we also teach them about like consequences, right? Like if I spill something on the table, instead of hiding or trying to, to run from a house, I know that I have to take a sponge and clean it. I mean, I spill something, I take a sponge, I clean it, and there's no big deal. Like I have the skill. Now I know what to do when something is spilled on the table. Yeah.
And mom and dad are calm about it. It's just not a big deal. Oh, let me show you how to do that. And then I'm going to watch you do it. So first you show them, they watch you, and then they do it and you watch them. And then pretty soon you're like, oh, that's spilled. He cleaned it up. I didn't even have to interact in that because he knew what to do. And he feels good because he knows what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely conversation.
I enjoyed it very much too. I hope it's helpful to all of the parents out there listening, and take it one step at a time. You've got to just nibble away and start with yourself, and understanding your boy, connecting with him it's gold. It's gold. And it will be, our goal is that boy that he calls you when he's 25 and says, Mom, I met the love of my life. You want that, but it starts now. It starts now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Have a lovely day.